Been a pleasure.
Okay, thank you. Now, we're back in studio here in Marino College for the Five Lamps Arts Festival, and I'm joined in studio at the moment by Conor Doyle. Conor, you're welcome to the programme.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, you have a special little show as part of the Five Lamps Arts Festival. Well, it's not a show as such, it's a presentation.
That's correct, a lecture, yeah.
And it's about the Theatre Royal. So.
That's right, Dublin's long-lost Theatre Royal. So how this actually came about really was that I did a Near FM course last year with Dorothy and Kieran. And at the end of it, we were asked, what would we like to do with, having done the course? And I said, well, look, the Theatre Royal had closed 50 years ago that June. It would be great to do a couple of programmes on the Theatre Royal. And there was a lady who was on the course as well, Susan Tumulty, whose mum actually danced on the Theatre Royal.
Oh, right, okay.
So I thought,
so one of the Royalettes then, is that what they were called?
Well, she wasn't actually a Royalette, her mum, but she worked with the Royalettes.
Yeah.
So we kind of thought, God, this was talk about coincidence 50 years later, because I had inherited one of the largest theatre memorabilia collections from my godfather Jimmy O'Dea and my aunt Ursula Doyle.
Okay.
So it was such a coincidence. So we decided, well, we'd give it a go and see. So we sent off the programme proposal to Near FM, and of course Dorothy, they said yes, which was fantastic. So we went out interviewing people on the street. We went out, interviewed people like Val Doonigan, Louis Lebrocki, all these kind of very famous people, Sean Connery, just to hear of their memorabilia or their memories of the Theatre Royal.
And I suppose to our listeners, the Theatre Royal, I know the Theatre Royal from my parents because they always spoke about the Theatre Royal.
Yeah.
But where was the Theatre Royal and what was it? I suppose it was held in such affection by Dubliners that we probably underestimate it nowadays.
Well, I think that's correct. It's actually in Hawkins Street where that beautiful Department of Health is now, that lovely building, and it runs parallel with De Lear Street. And I suppose the affection really from my research across different people that I've talked to was the simple fact that, particularly say during the war years, there was 4,000 seats in the Theatre Royal, and people went in, they paid their bob, and they went in and they had a show, then they had a film, and then they had another show, and they were literally royally entertained by people like Jimmy O'Dea, Noel Purcell, Maureen Potter, Jack Cruz, the greatest names of Irish theatre at the time, who not alone cut their teeth there, but went on then to perform elsewhere when the Royal closed down in '62, and became superstars in their own right. But I think that was the affection really that Dubliners had with the Theatre Royal. And then after the war years, you had people like Judy Garland coming to and
that was a famous visit, wasn't it, Judy Garland? And did she sing to the crowd?
Oh, she did. This is where it's hard to. I don't think an A-list star would do that today. Although I know Tom Cruise was in town last week, and he spends a lot of time on the red carpet, in fairness to the guy. But he didn't kind of put his head out the window of the number one dressing room.
Thank God he didn't sing as well.
Well, perhaps, maybe. We don't know how he can sing. But, she was there singing down to 2,000 people outside Mulligan's, Par in Poolbeg Street, for half an hour. The same with Danny Kaye. Danny Kaye came, he was on his way back from making Hans Christian Andersen. And he came to Dublin because he was going to the London Palladium, and he was there for a week. He entertained 50,000 people in that week, and at the end of his show, the show was supposed to finish at about 11:15, and so everybody get the last bus home. But he actually turned to the crowd each night and said, do you want me to continue? And he did.
Oh, he did.
And so he sat at the edge of the stage with his own piano, because Mr. Louis Elliman, that owned the Royal at the time, wouldn't pay any overtime. So the orchestra, Jimmy Campbell, went off, and he entertained the crowd royally for another half an hour.
Right.
And I suppose all that memorabilia and photographs of the Theatre Royal and the Royalettes, as you mentioned, because I had a cousin, Pansy Lawless, who was a Royalette. People keep sending me more photographs, more programmes. I have a lovely programme here from 1943 from the Theatre Royal with Jack Doyle and Movita, who was the famous boxer. Movita, was the film star. They sang together on the Theatre Royal, and then after their marriage broke up, she married. She went on and married Marlon Brando. So the names that appeared on the Theatre Royal are just legendary, not
huge.
Just here.
Yeah.
Plus, you have Peggy Dell, Maureen Potter, you name it, they all appeared.
And it was one of the biggest theatres in Europe.
It was the biggest theatre in Europe with 4,000 seats. The stage was 75 feet high. There was nowhere like it. The London Palladium only has 2,500 seats, if you count it like that. So,
yeah, absolutely. And why did they demolish it in the end? It was just...
Well, I suppose
I can't believe they demolished it.
Well, nor can I.
First of
And I
all,
think
it's
that's one of those things that it
which is
closed
just
very
so
quickly.
lucky that you have all this memorabilia, because
That's
otherwise
right.
there'd be nothing left
Well,
at all.
I suppose that is the problem, that I was lucky when, after my Aunt Ursula died, everything was passed to myself, and Mary Clark, who's the city archivist, was in charge of the theatre archives at the time, and I literally rang her and said, can you come in? And because I didn't know what half the stuff was, I knew what a lot of it was. And she literally boxed up everything, and eventually it was catalogued. There was about 60 boxes taken out of my aunt's apartment.
Wow.
So there was everything from Darby O'Gill costumes and stuff like that, and Biddy Mulligan costumes.
Yeah.
So so now after the programs we did with Near FM, I was asked to go out and give a couple of talks in the City Hall, and everything just seemed to.
So tell the listeners just quickly about your the show as part of the Five Lamps.
Well, okay. Well, basically, it's a lecture or talk about the old Theatre Royal, and it's on the Saturday, the 27th at 11 o'clock in the Charleville Library. And I've got some of the old music. We found some of the Jimmy Campbell music and Tommy Dando music, and so it's a sing-song. People come along, they bring their own bits of memorabilia, and they'll say, basically, I start off by saying who went to the Theatre Royal, and half the people put up their hands.
Right.
And we say who went to see whoever, and then I have loads of the old photographs. I even have some of the film which I got recently from the film archive of when the Theatre Royal was being demolished.
I've seen that.
Yeah,
yeah.
and
I think that there's two people. Is it Jimmy O'Dea who's there, or is
Jimmy O'Dea was the last person to speak.
Yeah.
On,
and he's your godfather.
He
did
is.
you
Yeah,
say?
that's right. Yeah.
Okay, that's a whole other program there. Actually.
So like we have all that, and then there's also, which is very relevant to the Five Lamps Festival with Maureen Potter growing up in Fairview.
Yeah.
I got on to Jack Hilton's archive in Lancaster University, and they sent me over some film of Maureen Potter when she performed in the BBC in 1938. So it's Maureen Potter as a very, very young girl, and we have some of that, and Peggy Dell as well.
Yeah, okay.
So it's just a great bit of crack.
You want people to. It's not going to be a stuffy lecture.
No,
people
God,
come
no.
along,
People
get
come
involved,
along, get
relive
involved,
your memories.
and they sing a bit of sing song. I have some of the old Jimmy Campbell music, as I was saying, and people listen and they see, and some people bring along some of the old programs and say, "Oh, I went to see," and
a chance to share those kind of
that's
memories.
right.
Okay,
Yeah,
and what date and time is it on?
We're on the 27th of April. It's actually the 27th at 11 o'clock in Charleville Library.
Okay, brilliant. Listen, thanks for coming into
No
studio,
problem. Thank you
and
for
best
having
of luck with that. I'm sure there's lots of people who love to go
Well,
down
hopefully.
and
Come on down, as they
take
say.
part in that. And also, you're doing a great service to Dublin history
Thanks.
as well, to be keeping that all together as
Well,
well.
hopefully, I think it's
absolutely.
kind of important as well.